Hello and welcome to the Livestock Insight Report Update brought to you by the AgriHQ analysts. I'm Nicola.
And I'm Friel.
We're going to run through last week's North Island and South Island Livestock Insight reports. We're going to start on the front page where Sarah had a piece that was a bit of an update on the US beef market.
That's right. So we've seen US imported beef prices track really well this season. At this stage, 90 CL and 95 CL indicators are both about US 50 cents a pound above average. However, we are just seeing demand and prices start to slow down slightly. That's a pretty normal seasonal occurrence. The US knows we're not in a big beef production period right now, so why pay more money for beef that's just not out there? But we've also seen that there are heightened kill rates for cows in the US, driven by a pretty extreme drought they're suffering along the western side of the country at the moment. So that is going to up domestic beef production and domestic beef stores, which could take the edge off demand for NZ beef. However, New Zealand is pretty insulated from this issue because a lot of what we export is 95 CL or bull beef. We've not seen bull production increase in the US at this stage, and in terms of 95 CL, that doesn't even really register in the USDA stock, so they don't really produce any of their own of that, so we are pretty safe in that regard.
Yeah, we're also seeing some shipping issues in the US and further abroad as well. So we'll have a touch on that in this week's report. If we look on the second page, we've got the cattle prices down here in the South Island. There's some nervousness around prime cattle supply. That's creeping in there. We've still got a little bit more room to move before we catch up to the North Island. Sarah's going to talk about how great the prices are in the North Island in a second. One thing the processors did want me to point out was that we're seeing some mud dags on the bellies of some of these cattle coming through. We've been blessed with a couple of really nice winters. Perhaps people have just, a little rusty on presentation. So at the moment we got some mud around, we are seeing some mud dags, but this is not okay for food contamination risks. So you got to keep on top of that. And the store, you talk about the North Island first.
Yes, so like you said, we've seen some pretty hot prices. $6 a kilo for prime and local trade is becoming more widely available. We're not normally at this point in this time of the season. I think in 2019 when they got to $6 a kilo, it was still 4 or 5 weeks away. So we're tracking really well again on the back of what is going to be a bit of a drop in production at some stage. We're kind of running off a cliff when it comes to prime numbers, as Nicola said. For cows as well, there's a lot of negotiation available for large lines of cows with prices kind of $4.50 and up. And that is also down to just processors needing to keep chains still and production high.
Down here in the South Island for the store cattle, there wasn't a hell of a lot going on, to be fair, but prices are getting just good enough to start tempting people into the market. Like one particular analyst is sending her cattle to Balclutha for tomorrow. So yeah, for vendors that were perhaps going to offload in August and September when the prices were good, prices are good enough now really to go have a go at that market, and perhaps for buyers as well who are starting to think, what could prices look like in the spring once we get some grass heating up the market? So, yeah, I don't know, go down to Balclutha, buy some cattle.
See what's up. Yeah, no, it's a very similar situation in the North Island. Supply is pretty tight. People are kind of drip feeding stock to the market because, as you said, Nicola, vendors are starting to get some pretty high price expectations. In some instances, the market's just not quite there yet, and we were seeing some cattle passed in at fielding at a pretty high price. And so we're thinking that could have a positive impact on yearling prices as people look at the R2 cattle and think, a little bit too much at this stage, maybe I'll invest in some R1s, because as you were saying, where our price is going to be in spring, it's looking pretty positive at this stage.
So that brings us to the lambs, doesn't it? If we looked at the South Island slaughter lamb market, well, the slaughter indicator was largely academic. There was so little capacity in the system. Our South Island lamb supply is the lowest anyone's ever seen it, and processors were taking capacity out because that was really the only thing left to do. We are seeing some capacity come back into the system this week. We'll see prices lift, and we'll just sort of see where that lands.
Yeah, in the North Island, starting to feel like a bit of a broken record here because it is just up, up and up. We saw a lift last week, we're expecting another lift this week, and that's off the back of pretty good export volumes, which we'll dig a little deeper into in this week's report. And if we just move along to store lands, because it does pass on quite nicely, we have seen those values just plateau slightly after buyers firstly went in pretty hard, put on by those hot slaughter prices. People kind of have expectations now. They know where it's going to be around that September-October period because they've either signed on to contracts or they've not, so they know whether they're dealing with a contract price or a spot market price, and a high supply of lands to Stortford Lodge and Fielding sale yards last week just did take the edge off pricing slightly. So we held the indicators, but that's the first time I've done that in about 4 weeks now.
Similar story down here in the South Island. Store lamb prices largely took a breather. Some of the lighter lambs, the indicator did lift for them because to reflect what was going on in the sale yards. There were some lambs out there getting $5 a kilo. We had the first of the in-lamb ewes come out. The top end, like the capital ewes, perhaps not as high as anyone was expecting. We didn't really see things getting into like the $300 range, which we might have expected given how high mutton prices are. But for the average ewes, things were looking pretty tickety-boo, around $200 or thereabouts, which traders felt gave them, pretty good return. Like it buys those lambs on board for about $20 each, which they thought was about where it needs to be. If we look for this week's report, we're going to have an update on shipping. We're going to look at calf rearing and bobby calf prices, and we're going to do an update on venison. So all that'll be in your inbox on Friday if you're a subscriber. If you're not a subscriber, I don't know where you've been, but you need to go to agrihq.co.nz and get yourself sorted out.